It has been a while because I have been so busy. I have not been able to keep up to date with anything nor read anything very much during this time period. But I did finish in like one day because I was camping this weekend. Southern Ghost Stories, Murfreesboro Spirits of Stone River by Alan Sircy. This clearly has to be self-published to some degree. This came from the library, and it was surprisingly Goodreads is rated pretty low. I'm not sure why, but Sircy seems like he has gone to a lot of trouble documenting all the different places in Murfreesboro that supposedly are haunted. He talks about the battlefield, he talks about the square, some of which I knew. It's a lot of hearsay. It's a lot of him going to different businesses and asking, "Hey, have you seen anything?" And a lot of people saying, "No, we haven't seen anything, but something weird happened." And there's a lot of that happens in this book. There's a lot of him digging up some of the history of Murfreesboro, which is fairly interesting, basically because the whole city was turned into a battlefield at one point, or the outskirts of the city was turned into a battlefield at one point, and the square has repeatedly burned down. It's just been a mess of the square burning down constantly. But I knew of some of this stuff. I had heard kind of about the Oakland mansion being haunted. I knew that Sugary's was supposedly haunted and different things on the square. But some of it was new. Some of it was stuff that I had never heard of. The mention of a haunted subway and some haunted used store at places was kind of amusing. Though the one seems to be like one of the more documented places that was haunted. So good luck, ghost that's stuck in the Cube U store it in Murfreesboro. That's a great place to be stuck for all eternity, I suppose. But it is interesting. It was interesting historically. There were quite a few editing errors in it. And I mean editing errors as in the wrong words were being used. Once again, this was another case of somebody who did not have a good editor. That really, because he could have used another once over, or a third party, a third person going outside and doing some more editing to it, because there were at least 3 words that I was like, you meant a different word. You meant a word that sounds like that but isn't that. It's a different word. And that's funny because he does have a pretty good vocabulary, but then sometimes it was just completely he just used the wrong word. And I suppose that's just the state of editing as it is at this point in time. But it being spooky season, this was a good one to read while I was out camping. And it did go into Stones River. It went into pretty good detail of the battle itself. I've known Slaughter Pens was supposed to be pretty haunted. I, do exercising over in Stones River pretty frequently, and Slaughter Pens is sort of just known for that. There's also supposed to be the Headless Horseman there, which was a guy who documentedly had his head taken off in the battle, accidentally over there in the Hazen area. But it not a bad book. I was surprised by how low the Goodreads reviews were on it, which is a little surprising. And I've found that he's written some other ones about Franklin and Nashville and Gallatin and some other stuff. So I might be looking for these books for our library just because I think the kids might be more interested in stuff that's from our area that's supposedly haunted. But I'm also trying to watch a scary movie a night for October, which is difficult because I'm not the biggest movie watcher. It's hard for me to find, because I have to really pay attention. It's hard for me to find time to sit down for like 2 hours to watch something and not like get interrupted or do something else. But I have watched two. I watched Werewolf of London and The Invisible Man, which were the original ones from the 30s that I had never seen. Werewolf of London is weird because I think it was made before The Wolfman and has a lot of similarities to it. It's also another one. Both of these were people whose main character, their protagonist, is really unlikable. The main character in Werewolf of London is incredibly unlikable. He's just not a particularly nice dude. He goes up to Tibet, I think it is, to try to find some sort of wolf flower, and of course he gets attacked by a werewolf in the process, because that's what happens when you go out of the country and you're an Englishman. And he comes back and is clearly trying to... There's so many time jumps in that one that you can't quite figure out what's going on, because I couldn't quite figure out what happened to one of his friends he was with, nor where this other person came from, who was clearly a white actor in yellowface trying to pretend that he was Japanese, I think. But yeah, that was another one. He's just unlikable. So at the end, when he's like doing his tragic dying thing, which Lon Chaney Jr. in The Wolfman's actually sympathetic. This dude wasn't so sympathetic. I was like, good, your wife can move on and marry the nice guy that has been flirting with her the whole time, because you really are a tool. The other one, being The Invisible Man, is the one with Claude Rains, who you famously cannot see throughout the whole thing until the very, very end. He's just an absolute horrible person from the get-go, because you never meet him before he's had the serum and has gone invisible. And I know that's how the H.G. Wells book is, but it's a little disconcerting in the movie because you don't get any backstory other than he's a horrible human. And his body count is so high. I don't know why people don't talk about how high the Invisible Man's body count is, because he, like, wrecks a whole train at one point and kills 100 some odd people, and then they've got casually mentioned he's killed 20 officers trying to chase him down. It's just kind of a weird... The whole thing, it has a weird tone, because on the one hand you have the bumbling policemen and townspeople who are kind of funny, and then you've got Claude Rains' Invisible Man, who is like trying to blackmail this guy he works with, and he's like, we're gonna murder so many people, we're gonna rob so much, I have infinite power. And I'm like, whoa, slow down, dude, you're invisible, you're not omnipotent, the serum didn't give you that, it just sort of like made you invisible. There's also the weird thought process for a movie in the 30s that this character, even though he's invisible, he's naked through the entire thing, because there's one scene where he's just in a shirt, like you just see the shirt running around, and I know that had to have been special effects of the time, but you have to also keep in mind he's completely naked otherwise. He escapes on a bicycle at one point, and I know it's supposed to be, you're supposed to be stunned by the special effects, but I kept being hung up on the fact that this dude is just running around naked for 90% of the movie. Which does come into play when they're trying to catch him, because they're like, it's really cold outside, he can't stay outside long. And I'm like, yeah, probably so. But anyhow, I've watched two 1930s horror movies, which kind of... The first one was kind of boring and a dud. The Invisible Man is... I can understand why it's the weaker of the classic Universal horror movies. When they talk about Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein Dracula, they don't talk about the Invisible Man as much, and I think it's because it was just sort of like, well, he's crazy and naked through most of it and runs around with a really high body count, but we're gonna let that slide. But anyway, so I have been watching movies, I've read another book, and I will try to keep moving on with all this, though it has just been very, very busy. Where I am at this point in time. But at least I got to make another video here before the month was out.